Mobs. We're starting with gobs. So here I started with my main bros base mesh, just so I could like have a base to start with, and then I gave him like a big old schnoz and adjusted his eyes and did a little bit of feature changes. I knew that his eyes were going to be black, so I didn't necessarily need a lot of like detail. Integrated those in so that way I could get them to, actually like fit with the face. And then I started bringing in some other parts, so like I could kit bash in stuff like feet, because he's going to be barefoot, whereas the other guy had shoes. So stuff like that, like adjusting the face. I wanted it to be kind of bird-like and like kind of like triangular. So I extended out that face, gave him some fangs, and then like started using like the flatten tool quite a bit here to get like some sharper features, masking out the ears, and then painting in a little bit of detail. So that way, like it could keep that like that stylized aesthetic. Um, and then booleaned it all together, and then I changed up his waist a little bit, and then dumped it back into Maya. And here you can see it actually follows the original mesh pretty good. I do need to make some adjustments to like the low res version. So I started adding like toes and stuff to the kit bash part that I had originally used. And then brought it in Unreal to test it. So this is just the high res that I brought in Unreal to test, and then seeing it next to the character, I created a rotator for it. So just like you can see me here creating a rotation function, so that way I can see it from all sides, and then testing that, and then testing it at a smaller size to see which one works best. So I liked the 0.9, so I ended up going with that, and then brought it back in, or went back into Maya, and started putting it all together. A lot of the UVs carried over, so I was able to reuse a lot of that, which saved me a ton of time. Here I am, like making the high res mesh live, and then shaping the body to it, so that way I have like a good base. Doing some symmetry on the head. I had to redo a bunch of the topology on the head. I don't necessarily need it to be super crazy, so I kind of just did a normal retopo, like in Maya, and then symmetry. Uh, um, so that way I could like keep it like that. So a little bit of the topo is kind of weak, but it still works out pretty okay. Um, then I brought it into Painter, and I baked the high res down to the low res, so that way I could give him like some skin, and then I used a generator to get that kind of like stylized look to it. Um, and then after that, I dumped it back into Unreal to check it, and now here I am applying it to the rig. Thankfully, it didn't deviate from the original scale too much, so I was able to just reuse the rig. You can see I copied the skin weights over, so that way I could actually like test it, and it worked out pretty great. So back into Unreal now with the new materials. I knew I wanted him to have like kind of glowy eyes. Somebody in chat wanted like red eyes, so I went with a kind of like reddish yellow hue to it. I didn't really like him being naked, so I kind of gave him some undies at least. I will be giving him armor, but for now I wanted this, just to break it up a little bit. I gave him some like skin patches, so that way it could, he's not just like straight green all the time. Here I am making some blend shapes. So with the animation, I knew that I didn't want him to just be like like doll face the whole time. So I gave him stuff like a blink. Here I am giving him a sneer, so that way he can have a little bit more personality. I didn't do any happy faces. I probably should. But here's something that I did that I didn't do on the first one, which was I integrated the teeth into the head mesh. So I'm testing it here, and then making sure that those teeth kind of like pop out, and that way it like gives it that kind of like that cartoony look. And that's another advantage to having the teeth integrated, is now I can move them with the blend shapes. So that way I can have this like very bespoke and very art directed look to each one of his facial movements. So I did that, and then once I felt that they were in a good spot, I was able to start animating. And so I started animating this and was able to I started by actually uh, having him, in the standard gob pose, which is hunched over, and then gave him like a generic base like face look, like, so he's like, he's already gurring. Um, and then what I started doing was um, was making him have a feet like a foot shuffle. I didn't want him just stand there breathing because goblins, generally speaking, are pretty steppy. So I wanted him to kind of like step around a little bit. And when I'm doing something like that, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll start from the ground up. So I want his feet, for example, to be what, I mean, the feet are holding him up. It's not his pelvis moving and then like some noodles that connect him to the ground. It's his feet that are holding him up. So I need to have all of that be driven by his feet. So initially, what I did was I moved his waist and then had his feet kind of roughly where I wanted them to be, and then removed all of the waist motion, and then put the feet there, like where I wanted them, and then like had them kind of like rotate into wherever they're stepping, and using like the balls of the feet a little bit. You can see that, and then I had the hip adjustment so like when he's pushing off from his feet, especially with the balls of his feet, I wanted like his knees and his pelvis and his hips to react to that because he's like using his feet and his leg muscles to drive that motion. So I wanted I wanted to make sure that that was like properly shown. And I know that this is an idol and it's considered like the easy one, but it was, it's still a very important one because it's one that you're going to see a lot. So I wanted to make sure that it still looked good. And I did all of this with the intention that it would be mirrored at some point. Here I am like just adjusting the height in the graph editor, so that way it's that his height is like staying pretty consistent. And then making sure that his arms and his shoulders and everything reacts. So you can see that I started from the ground with his feet, and then moved up to his hips, and now I'm working on his spine and his arms a little bit. And then from there, I'll start working on the head, and like giving him kind of like a look at where he'll like dip his head as he's looking, and then do a blink, because generally speaking, when you turn your head pretty quickly, you usually blink. So I made a point of it to have him kind of do that. So you can see I'm doing that here, where his head is like looking in that other direction, and then kind of like looking around. So that way he's on guard essentially. And then here I am just kind of like adjusting the blend shapes in the graph editor to make sure that they're pretty smooth. I don't want them to be too smooth. Like I want him to furrow his brow when he's looking, but I don't want him to like be like, like I want it to look, pretty natural. So I'm adjusting all of that and then copying the last frame and then bringing it back to the first frame because I liked the last frame better. So I'm doing that. And then once I am finished with that, like I'm doing a little bit of polish on like the rotation of the hands and stuff, so that way it can like roll into it, and then a little bit of like hip adjustment to make sure that he's like shifting his weight a little bit. You may have just seen that I have a bake joints tool that I use, and that just bakes out all of the joints that are in the scene, and then exporting from the rig and animation. Here I had like a little bit of an Euler flip, so I had to go through and fix that after the bake. And then I brought it into Unreal and then tested it in all different versions, and it came out pretty good. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. So I need to give him some armor, and then I think he's pretty good. I hope this helps somebody. Later.